and what requirements they are given to liaise with local authorities. Whether consideration has been given to support local authorities in meeting broader housing need, which is still being unmet for far too many of my constituents enduring Scotland's housing crisis, and if any break clauses in contracts with operators are not taken up by the Home Office, what obligations will the Home Office put on these providers to compel that they engage with local communities that was not done under the previous government and is the stem of many of the issues we now see in Falkirk and across the country? Thank you very much, Sir John.
Paul Kohler. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Pleasure to serve under your chairship. I congratulate the Honourable Member for Hawksing Hyde for leading on this important debate. I begin by declaring an interest. A previous donor to my election campaign has an interest in Stay Belvedere Hotels, a subcontractor of Clear Springs, one of the 3 principal providers of asylum accommodation under the Home Office contract. I'm also a member of the Home Affairs Select Committee, which recently completed an inquiry into asylum accommodation and will be issuing its report later this month. Whilst I will not be speaking in my capacity as a member of that committee, nor revealing conclusions from the forthcoming report, I will, during my speech, make reference to evidence given to the committee in open session, which is already in the public domain. As we have heard, the British taxpayer is wasting obscene amounts of money on the provision of asylum accommodation. Not through generosity, but due to the incompetence and cynicism of the previous Conservative government and the failure of the current Labour administration, I'm afraid, to address those deficiencies. Under the Tories, the processing of applications was deliberately delayed as they sought to make political capital from their flawed Rwanda scheme. According to the latest figures, nearly 90,000 applications are currently outstanding in respect of 110,000 people, with 60% having waited over 6 months and a third over a year. This represents a huge waste of public money, which is why my party is calling for the establishment of Nightingale processing centres to clear the backlog within a year, paid for by an immediate and dramatic reduction in accommodation costs, which are far too high, particularly in respect of hotels. But why are hotel costs so high? As I've seen, it is not as if the accommodation is luxurious, with 2 or 3 to a room in hotels that have turned into overcrowded hostels. The reason why the costs are so high is because the Conservative government agreed contracts which gave the 3 principal providers of asylum accommodation huge incentives to house applicants in hotels. The profit clawback clause in the contract was based on a fixed percentage of the cost of the accommodation provided. As the base cost of a hotel accommodation is up to 8 times more expensive than other accommodation, the providers could make up to 8 times the profit before the clause kicked in. The private providers consequently had a huge disincentive for moving applicants out of hotels after the pandemic had ended, which is why over 30,000 are still in hotels. Whilst, despite what the government is saying in the media, those numbers are again on the rise, with the latest figures showing an 8% increase in the number of applicants housed in hotels in the last 12 months. The flawed accommodation contract is the reason why Clear Springs profits rose from £6,000 per employee in 2020 to a staggering £300,000 per employee in 2024. Yet, when I asked about the profit clawback clause during a select committee evidence session, it was clear neither the minister, not this minister I hasten to add, but your predecessor, nor her senior officials even knew how the profit clawback clause worked, or showed any appetite to renegotiate the provision, or any great enthusiasm for exiting the contracts, despite a break clause that becomes operative from next year. In addition to the hugely inflated cost of providing accommodation, asylum seekers are also an excessive drain on the public purse because, unlike in other countries, those awaiting a decision in the UK are banned from working for at least a year. In contrast, Canada allows applicants to begin working immediately, and Germany after 3 months, with the UK standing as an absolute outlier in taking such a restrictive approach, despite evidence showing early work boosts integration and the economy, reduces dependency, restores dignity and saves taxpayers money. The UK's current position is indefensible, which is why the Lib Dems have joined with many groups in civil society in calling for an end to the ban. The asylum system is failing, both those seeking refuge and the public who fund it. Endless delays, costly hotel placements and flawed contracts provide neither justice nor value for money. We need faster processing, an end to the ban, and an accommodation system that does not allow the private sector to make obscene profits. Finally, can I remind honourable members, the issue of undocumented migrants only became an issue with the advent of Brexit. Under the Dublin Accord, would-be applicants could be returned to their first point of entry into the EU. And in answer to the Tories' point they kept making this afternoon, in answer to that point, it acted as a huge disincentive to crossing the Channel. Whilst the member for Clacton fathered Brexit, and his friends in the Conservative Party delivered it, Labour sadly chose to be its nursemaid, and they vowed to make Brexit work. I see today from reports from across the Atlantic, the Chancellor is finally realising that might not be possible. I would finally add, when I asked the UK Border Security Commander at the Select Committee last week if he could give just one example of how Brexit had helped us secure our borders, he, as you can see on TikTok, was unable to do so. That's why the only way to properly secure our borders is to re-engage with Europe. Thank you.
Ms Murray.
Thank you, Sir John, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I draw the Chamber's attention to my declaration of interest and the support that my office receives from RAMP. This is a really important debate, and I congratulate the member for Folkestone and Hythe for his eloquent introduction to this difficult issue. As the previous speaker, the member for Wimbledon, has just alluded, the Home Affairs Select Committee has been undertaking an inquiry into asylum accommodation, and our report is coming out on Monday. I will be speaking as well in a personal capacity, but there may be some overlap in some of our conclusions. One of the things that was patently clear to us as we undertook a 15-month inquiry into asylum accommodation is that it has been a complete disaster. It has been disastrous for local communities where asylum seekers are being housed and for the local authorities.